Day 1179 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzie here, and today is another update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So starting off, we'll take a look at those Russian losses, as currently Russia sits on more than 972,000 military personnel losses, representing an additional 910 losses in the past day. Certainly a below average day. Then as for hardware, 6 tanks, 7 APVs, 34 artillery, with another air defense system lost coming from yesterday's losses. Another fully independent system, the Book M1, a TELAR unit, able to detect, track and engage targets independently. Far from an isolated event, as Russia has, in most recent times, been losing a large string of $10 to $25 million apiece as it comes to these units, letting them go like they were going out of fashion. Then headed to the map where Russia's prized hold on Crimea is cracking again. Explosions lit up the skies over Perevalna, northeast of Sevastopol, where a military warehouse went up in flames, so intense that even a Russian officer on site couldn't string a proper sentence together in the corresponding audio feed. Ammunition blasted out of the compound like fireworks gone rogue, and is a location that is home to the Black Sea Fleet's 126th Coastal Defense Brigade and the 8th Artillery Regiment. Then to the main map, where Ukrainian forces from the 63rd Mech Brigade showed they have retaken a location near the Torsk area in northern Donetsk, capturing POWs and even raising a flag at a church. Simultaneously, in this Lerman direction, Ukrainian drone intel spotted a Russian 2S-7 Pion SPG as it was firing against Ukrainian positions. Now, after pinpointing the target, pilots from the Signum battalion struck and appeared to damage the gun. Then to the front lines of the central Donetsk region, where soldiers of Ukraine's 71st Separate Jaeger Brigade repelled more motorcycle assaults. They destroyed 8 motorcycles, a car, and an ATV. With this relatively new biker tactic that continues to have legs and emerge, or 2 wheels, among Russian forward units, and where it's the type of deployment that has much less capacity to form a true modernized column of armored combat vehicles, especially when comparing with the state of health of the Russian army from this time last year. It's really gone downhill on a motorbike. But the AFU's trusty drones are not always targeting Russian storm assaults, where sometimes instead they're performing other defensive duties like that of this Vampire drone, a formidable heavy attack drone, performing aerial drone resupply, including the carrying of barbed wire or concertina wire, as seen from a most recent instance. But then flipping back to where the drones are taking up arms, quite literally, includes the following event from 2 days ago now, with one of their FPV drones operating 10 kilometers deep into Russian Kursk airspace. It's a good depth for drones in enemy airspace, but at the same time a very risky proximity to the border for a Russian helicopter to be in. Now, as for this event, the final frames of the FPV's video were cut due to a probable RPG warhead firing off, so it's not precisely known the outcome to this latest example, whether damaged or destroyed. Though I'd have to side with the former, not the latter, on this occasion, given the lack of reports from the Russian side of an aircraft loss of this magnitude. Nonetheless, engagements like these are fast becoming increasingly common between AFU quadcopters and Russian helicopters in this war, with the Russian helicopter seen here clearly a Ka-52, indicated by its distinctive nose and fuselage shape, coaxial rotors, and non-tail rotor design. Now, as a tally, at least 3 Russian helicopters were destroyed by Ukrainian drones in this war, all happening in around the last 6 months or so, with 2 Mi-8s and 1 Ka-52 taken out, which is a tally that does not include this May 15th aerial meetup. And also does not include Ukrainian sea drones equipped with really any manner of weaponry these days, not the least of which is an R-73 or AIM Sidewinder, taking out jets or choppers in the Black Sea over the past months and even weeks. also reported in Kursk at Gayevo as a Ukrainian Air Force MiG-29 Fulcrum dropped a pair of French-supplied AASM Hammer guided munitions on a Russian position. A recon drone spotter firstly confirmed the target, followed by the Ukrainian MiG coming in to display the striking show of Hammer precision targeting of enemy sites. Then, just adjacent to Kursk on the Kharkiv and Belgorod border, 3 Russian BMP infantry fighting vehicles were destroyed near Zyrolevka, with the handiwork performed by the 58th Motorized and 92nd Assault Brigades on a front that is the gateway to Kharkiv. Or is it the gateway to Belgorod? Then headed across to the news today, where following the events of Thursday peace talks in Istanbul between Russia and Ukraine, with Russia represented by presidential aide Vladimir Medensky, who effectively arrived with a list of demands that echoed past ultimatums, that Ukraine cede full control of Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia and Kherson regions, even though significant portions of these territories still remain under Ukrainian control. Alongside this set of demands, Russia stipulated for the recognition of Crimea as Russian territory. Now, Ukraine, led by Defense Minister Umerov, stood firm, viewing these demands as a call for surrender. The talks, lasting under 2 hours, had yielded no ceasefire agreement. However, amid the diplomatic stalemate, both sides agreed to a significant prisoner exchange. 1,000 individuals from each side would return home soon, marking the largest such swap since the conflict's inception. But far from a gesture of Russian goodwill, as arguably, Russia always performs actions that only benefit itself. With, in this case, the Russian MOD has likely assessed that it serves greater benefit for Russia and its army to receive back its POWs due to its own known instant recycling of this additional manpower back into the SMO, with their analysis certainly indicating that Ukraine doesn't throw any POW back into war after making it back home. Now, for these talks, the most shocking display of diplomacy at Istanbul was how the Russian delegation, due to its failures to negotiate, remarked with the bully rhetoric of, quote, "Next time there will be 5 regions," after failing to get what they wanted in terms of controlling all of Kherson, Zaporizhia, Luhansk and Donetsk, making for a behavior which is completely nonsensical to act in such a way during highly publicized peace talks between the two countries. Unbelievable. It really goes to show Russia's playbook is still war, not peace. Yet this posturing, of course, aligns with ongoing assessments that Putin will only compromise under severe battlefield and economic pressure. Now, to add to that, later on in Russia, State Duma Deputy Popov acknowledged the peace talk demands and reportedly doubled down, stating, quote, "We said 8, implying Russia's intention to claim additional Ukrainian territories beyond the 4 mentioned, all as part of follow-up remarks to those Medensky threats of a 5th Ukrainian territory if negotiations continued to displease Russia. Now, the numbers get messy here, whether it's 5, 6, 7 or 8, but these types of threats inside and outside of the delegation room in Istanbul speak to Russia's extremely aggressive stance. It's just something any party to the conflict simply wouldn't say if they were genuinely aspiring for peace. I think the real question we should all be asking ourselves here is, how many is enough? 5? 8? How about 27? That's all of Ukraine, all of the Ukrainian regions. And if they pulled that off, surely they wouldn't stop there. They'd just keep going. That much should be clear by this stage. And then in related news, as Thursday talks were coming to a close, President Zelensky reaffirmed that, as the guarantor of the Constitution of Ukraine, that to discuss territorial concessions of their country violates Ukraine's constitution, and reaffirmed that Ukraine does not recognize temporarily occupied lands as Russian, followed by reiterating calls for a full unconditional ceasefire and increased international pressure on Russia. And so when you step back and have a think about it all, coming into peace talks, Russia's compromise in negotiations was to take more unoccupied Ukrainian land. That's evidently what a Russian compromise looks like. And in failing to have the Ukrainian side agree to this, they just threatened to take even more Ukrainian land. Hardly the conduct of a peace-seeking partner. Meanwhile, European leaders aren't mincing words after the Istanbul peace talks. Germany's Merz stated that Putin staying at home during such a crucial timing of talks puts him in the wrong position, and that a fresh batch of EU sanctions is already queued up for Tuesday in Brussels. And then from London to Warsaw, unity was tightening. Italian PM Meloni called out Russia's aggressive posturing, while Poland's Tusk said Moscow showed no goodwill and laid down conditions that were unacceptable to all of us, quote unquote. And then UK's PM Starmer warned, quote, if Putin dodges peace, he must pay. But then as for the Kremlin spin, where following the talks, Kirill Dmitriev, head of Russia's Sovereign Wealth Fund and Putin's envoy for foreign investment, practically hailed the Istanbul talks as a success. On social media, he praised a potential ceasefire path, despite no concrete proposals being reached. In fact, Ukraine suggested a new 30-day ceasefire, which Russia rejected, insisting on terms of territorial concessions, a non-starter for Kyiv. Dmitriev also spoke of mutual understanding, even though there was little of that to be found at the meeting, as Russia simply wants more land and Ukraine won't give any away. Future dialogue was mentioned too, but no timeline was set, just unconfirmed murmurs of talks in June, surely with an expectation of talks a month or two after that, and then another month or two after that again. In other words, delay, 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 stalling dressed as diplomacy. But most notably from the message perhaps was the warm thank you to Trump from Russia's camp, stroking his ego into thinking that the war was just waiting on a Trump autograph. Meanwhile, during the talks, Putin was extremely busy on the day, performing a remote meeting via webcam regarding information security within the country. I guess he just wanted to look busy, but not get out of his chair. Then headed across to a couple of quick funnies to round off the video today, perhaps more so interesting tidbits related to these most recent events, where in Istanbul, a reporter challenged Russian envoy Medensky, asking, is your president too scared to come here? A fair question, with Medensky responding that the Russian delegation was fully authorized to negotiate on behalf of the Kremlin. Highly unlikely. The reality instead being a messenger tasked with undertaking an aggressive tone. Then lastly for the video, reports released about Ukraine's requested use of a Russian to Ukrainian translator to ensure clear communication during these peace talks on Thursday. Observers joked that the translator's real challenge was deciphering whether Russia's peace proposals were actual offers or just another round of diplomatic charades. Russia, displeased with the need for a translator, overlooks the distinct cultural identities and differences between both countries. Now, Russia says Ukrainians are Russians, and yet they are very well known to speak some very poor Ukrainian. So that's it for today, guys. You might not have expected a video today, but having said that, I didn't expect to not have the opportunity to upload a video yesterday. Ah, life. So thanks again for watching, and I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers!